Hey everyone, welcome back to another Thanksgiving special. It's so cold here. It's the coldest Thanksgiving. I don't know if it's the coldest Thanksgiving on record. I got bags under my eyes though. That's unusual. So I look like I'm especially sleepy today. But yeah, here we go. Thanksgiving special. I don't think we did one last year. Otherwise, I'd call this the sixth annual Thanksgiving special. But I don't think it's that. Cretan Cave Productions, thank you so much for swinging on by. They're the ones who did that cool X-File retro theme music that's on the YouTube channel. We should play that again on the podcast. We played it a while ago. Emilio Villapondo, thank you so much for swinging on by. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Alex Forum Austin, it's Maria. Maria is in the live chat. Thank you so much for showing up. Amalia, thank you for coming in. Mike the Psych, hey, what's up? Rudy Jazz saying looking handsome as always, Mr. Carpenter with Riz. It's because that's what the kids say nowadays. Riz, Joe Logan, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody who's coming on by. It's so cold here. I don't technically have to wear the hat, but my hair's quite gray. Hey, Mewtwo, thanks for swinging on by. Happy Thanksgiving. I immediately get cold. Cretan Cave says hasn't been able to listen as much this summer on the podcast. You know, I get that a lot, and it's totally fine for people to drop in and drop out. Some people take years off of the show. Some people are like, I haven't listened to your show in 2 years, but I'm glad you're still here going strong. So no, I know people take breaks from time to time. No problem with that. Dante Carr, happy Thanksgiving of Space Age. Happy Thanksgiving. SK, I'm doing good. SK asked how I'm doing. I'm doing really good. I'm feeling really good. Thanks for asking. Big Head Bonnie, happy Thanksgiving. Part of the tribe. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for stopping on by. Carol Williamson, happy Thanksgiving to you as well for swinging on by. Awesome. Mike the Sykes coming at us from Manchester, United Kingdom. We got people from all over the world in the live chat. That's totally awesome. That's what's so great about this show here. Caspian Montague said their new Dead Rabbit Radio season resolution is to actually keep up with the episodes for once. One thing I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start doing reruns more consistently on the weekend, but then I'm going to erase them so it doesn't clog up people's feeds. I'm going to kind of go through and erase all the reruns more than 2 weeks back. The original episodes will still be there, but I don't like to clutter up people's feeds and all of that. Rudy Jazz just saying that today they officially finished the first draft of their novel. That's awesome. Congratulations. That's a huge thing to get that done, to really get that done. So very, very proud of you. That's awesome. Part of the tribe says, had no clue that we were even doing this. That's fine. We didn't get a lot of publicity, right? I talked about it very briefly at the end of the season. I gave you guys the wrong date. I said Thanksgiving is on November 21st, but it wasn't. It's today. And then I kind of just had the last 3 episodes to kind of roll with it. So yeah, I could have promoted it a little more. Carol Williamson from Yosemite says it's very cold there. Yeah, I think last night was the first time it went below freezing here in town. It's going to be a rough one. Anon, thanks for swinging on by. Happy Thanksgiving, swinging on by. Joe Graves back with the Dead Rabbit Radio. Little emojis. Fabio Nurbon, our foreign correspondent, swinging on by to say, hey, this is awesome. I'm so glad that we're doing this. Like, this is really, really cool. Art Jimenez swinging on by. Yosh, happy Thanksgiving to both of you as well. I hope you guys have some good Thanksgiving plans. I'm going to go eat. I talked about it on yesterday's episode. I got my box of stovetop stuffing, my bag of instant potatoes, just add water, and a Stouffer's turkey meal, and I'm jazzed, dude. I've been eating nothing but nuts for weeks. Before you guys get any dirty thoughts, it's like these nuts. This is keto, cheese, nut, and seed. And you guys might be surprised, but this isn't very good. This doesn't taste great. It's like pumpkin seeds and dried cheddar and pecans. I'm not a big pecan fan. I'm more of a cashew guy. I mean, obviously peanuts are the best. I think everyone can agree to that. Let's take a look here. Signgram swinging on by for the live chat. Really, really appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Cretan Cave says they Usually listen to the podcast during just like that. I was doing a lumberjack thing. A Green Cave said they listen to the podcast while they're cutting down trees. That'd be kind of spooky, honestly. SK recently proposed to their girlfriend at the Hood River Lavender Farms. Oh, I should have read the rest of it. And then they broke up. And then the question is, how does one move to Hood River? I'm priced the frick out right now. Hood River, it's interesting because, like a lot of places, the housing's really high and there's not a ton of it. So people will move to one of the neighboring communities like Parkdale or the Dalles or Stevenson across the river. But there's still some places in Hood River. You can still find a deal somewhere. But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. Maybe we'll have a new neighbor. Maybe we'll have a new resident of Hood River. Anon says, you sent me messages on Patreon, and a few emails. I've been really slow at responding to emails. That's kind of the shape of the beast, especially when I'm on break. We don't get a lot of that stuff to look at. So if you emailed me underneath the name Anon, I mean, I get a lot of emails just going by Anon, so I'm not for sure. Rudy Jazz is going to be starting the second draft. That's awesome. That is really cool, Rudy. I'm glad that that's working out for you. Odd Hybrid, happy Thanksgiving. Really, really cool. Alex 4M Austin, when do we get to meet Sabine? Well, if you're able to travel hundreds, possibly thousands of miles to go to one of the ghost conferences, Sabine's always there. Sabine's always with me at the ghost conferences. So I know a couple people that have met her in real life. Let's take a look. Part of the tribe says the only thing I'm missing from my Thanksgiving meal is the stuffing. The stuffing is the stovetop. It's just you put a box of little freeze-dried stuff and throw some. I'm so hungry because again, this is what I've been eating. Nuts. I've been eating more than these nuts. I have different types of nuts in the fridge, and I eat some raisins. What happened was after the last ghost conference, I just felt really bloated, and I was having a lot of back pain, and I think I'm just inflamed. So I kind of went to a nut. I'm just going to eat natural stuff, which is super alien for me. Everything I eat's pretty processed. But I was like, let's just do like a nut and veggie and fruit diet, which again, people thought like I got replaced by a robot. But I just needed to do like a cleanse. And I said, I'm going to do it for a week. And at this point, it's been like 2 or 3 weeks. And actually, I really do just like eating nuts. I'm fully aware that this is going to get sound clipped and people are just going to make a montage of me saying I like nuts over and over again, but they are pretty delicious. Caspian Montague says just like a real rabbit. I don't know if rabbits eat nuts. He said he didn't know either, but I imagine if you starved a rabbit long enough and then threw some peanuts. I'm not recommending to do this, by the way, but I wonder if you had a dog. I probably shouldn't continue this thought, but if you had a dog, they're omnivores, right? But they hated peanuts. Would they eventually eat them? I wonder if someone was allergic to peanut. Never mind that one. Because they would die either way, either starvation or peanut allergy. Let's see here. Signgram is sending out love from New Zealand. Really, really appreciate that. Let's take a look here. Signgram says, I think about the little boy urine eggs episode sometime. That's a blast to the past, right? That was when it was like in China, the boys would pee on eggs and it was a delicacy. It's a weird story. You know what's funny is I like covering stuff like that, but it's so hard to find. Like you just kind of stumble across that. I used to have at my job, I used to have more time where I could read the news. Before my workday started, I was able to read the news. So I could get all of these different stories. And really, in maybe the past 2 years, I've lost probably about 2 hours of work a day. I used to be able to just read articles for about 2 hours uninterrupted each day. And I've lost that. And that's why it's I feel like the show's suffering a little bit from that because I like finding those weird egg stories. Carol Williamson said she's not getting any video. Are you guys seeing video here? Are you guys seeing me? Because I keep talking about it. I hope there's video coming through. Let's see here. Short Circuit saying happy Thanksgiving. Really, really appreciate that coming on out. This was a question. Fabio Nurbon asked this question, and someone else asked it on YouTube. I apologize. I don't remember who wrote it. About whether or not, this is interesting, whether or not using the law of attraction counts as transhumanist. And I would say my feeling is no. My feeling is no. It's because you're using, it would be no more transhumanist than using gravity to jump down, like to jump down a stair. It's just a natural force. I don't think that, that's probably, you're like, how can you jump downstairs? Gravity holds us back. I'd say the law of attraction, I'd put it on more of saying that because I have stomach acid in my body that helps me digest food, is that transhumanism? I think the law of attraction is a natural law that we just don't take advantage of. Not a lot of people. But that's a very interesting question. I thought that was fascinating. Da, 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 da. Okay, yeah, Nikolai, I'll take another look at those messages there. I'll take another look at those messages and I'll get back to you. Let's see here. Rudy Jazz saying plot twist: Sabine and Jason have a Fight Club thing going on. Well, that's not the case as far as I know. People have met both of us at the same times. Flanco Pops, happy Thanksgiving from Estonia. So awesome to see you here. Blue, happy Thanksgiving to Dead Rabbit Radio. Your radio show is always a bright part of my day, and I hope that I can translate through this message. Much love. And then 3 blue hearts. Really appreciate it. Joe Graves says, have you ever checked out the old mill at Silver Falls? Oh, no. Old mill at Silver Falls. Is that up in, okay, Silverton, Oregon? You know, because I don't have a car, I never check out anything. Like, people are like, hey, do you know of this town that's 20 miles? And I'm like, no, never heard of it. Might as well be on the news. But I can look at that for sure. I'll take a look at that. And then I keep making this mistake, right? I want to make sure. I'm going to put a little bookmark and I'm going to go recommended Joe Graves YouTube. Rico from Acapulco asked me if I'm still doing the keto. And no, despite the fact, and not because it's not awesome. Keto is super awesome. But despite the fact that these are keto nuts, the other nuts I got aren't keto. I just thought these were the bag that I had by me as I was eating some earlier. No, I honestly want to go back on keto, but the problem is that I would hit this hard plateau, and I just couldn't break through. So I need to kind of reevaluate just the diet overall. But I 100%, I mean, again, keto got me down 350. Keto got me cut. That's what I say in real life because I'm used to do a show. Keto got me down 50 pounds hard. Like 100%, I don't go back up over that limit. It's that 300 to 270 that I keep navigating through, and it sucks. But Blues, happy Thanksgiving from Georgia, USA. Thank you so much for swinging on by. Totally awesome. Mogfadon, happy Thanksgiving from Texas. This is great. All you guys coming on out. Signgram asks, you heard about those ghost dispelling devices that are, what's going on? That are mad dangerous and release ozone at the risk of exploding? No. I'll have to look into those. I mean, that's some of my favorite things, ghosts and explosions. Yeah, I'll see if I can pull up anything on that. I don't see anything in just a cursory examination, but that would be interesting. And you'd have to wonder, what if... Oh, I think you're talking about spirit boxes, maybe, because you said they're frequency jammers. What if that's a false flag? Because all of my talk about ghost hunting being investigated by the government, what if they start making ghost hunting gear illegal? Because they said it's breaking this law and that law. Could also be illegal because it's blowing up in people's hands. They're like, my hands are gone. Now my hands are ghosts. El Pato, happy Thanksgiving to you. Thank you so much for coming on out. Rudy Jazz is complimenting my gray hair. I don't really see it. I mean, obviously, no, I have some gray hair. I think it shows up way more on camera, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it shows up everywhere. Let's see here. Carol agrees that I'm handsome, while Mike the Psych is making nuts jokes about how much nuts I'm eating. I know. Again, like if one of my brothers were here, it would be all over the place. That came out wrong. If one of my brothers here, what I mean is they'd make fun of me a lot, not the other thing. David James, thanks for swinging on by. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Rari Incitatus, thanks for so much for coming on out. Much love, Jason. You make many of my nights better. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. I just think of the cool memories I had listening to podcasts, and I'm glad that I can share that with you, because I know sometimes when I'm feeling down or bored or whatever, I'll look for my favorite podcast to be on. I'll check it out. Blitz Neo, thanks for swinging on by. I'm glad that you're able to get here live. I get it. You can't always get out here, and sometimes it's nice. It's just a happy accident. It all comes together. Mario, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for swinging on by. Rudy Jazz, this is an interesting question. I think Rudy Jazz is asking it in jest, hopefully. But the question is Rudy Jazz using their asthma medication transhumanism? I would argue no. But I think, like, isn't that the whole, I shouldn't say the whole point, but that's one of the tenets of, say, Christian Science, where you don't have any medical intervention. I mean, that's not true. It's that you don't take medicine. You don't take certain medicines or what have you. There was actually, in that transhumanist episode, the penis larger episode, there was a lot edited out of that. And one of them was addressing that issue, Rudy. I took it out for time. I think that I was like, I'm not going to talk about it, but I edited it out. It was this long stretch. I shouldn't say long. It's probably about 2 or 3 minutes, where I was saying, if you are paralyzed from the neck down and you get a chip put in your neck so you could walk, is that transhumanism? Yes. Is that wrong? I would say no. I mean, it would be your decision whether or not to do it. But we did talk about that a bit. I made a lot more jokes about the penis enlarger. That all got edited out as well. Grobman, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for swinging on by. The Soviet alien episode was pretty good. We've done a couple of those. I don't know which one that was. That might have been the one with the girl finding the UFO. We used to do a ton of those Soviet KGB versus aliens. I think there's like almost a series of those at that point. Give me your cookies. Swinging in from Arkansas. I'm having a great Thanksgiving, and I hope you're having a great Thanksgiving too. I hope everyone is having a lot of fun. And now I'm going to grab a pen as I'm rocking back and forth. Blitz Neo, thank you so much for your generous donation. Blitz Neo writes, are you interested in the Army? What's your favorite tank? That's an interesting question. Here's the thing. Like, I understand the need. It's like so funny because it's like a funny question with a serious beginning. Yeah, I'm totally interested in the Army. I think a lot of people are interested in the Army. I think it's cool. I wish that they didn't have to exist. I wish that war was just in movies, or if it was in real life, we were fighting space aliens or something like that, blowing the guts out of a gray. That'd be totally dope. It's always depressing, though, when humans are killing other humans, especially in mass. So going from that to what's my favorite tank, I'm kind of a tank. I look at tanks the same way I look at cars, where I feel I'm going to have to put my sunglasses on. Is that going to make me look too cool for this? That looks ridiculous, but my eyes are dry. That looks so stupid. But anyways, I can't tell brands apart with cars. I can't at all. I kind of can tell a Ford Mustang because I used to have one, so I kind of know that. But like, if you put a bunch of cars in a row, I could not tell if you removed all the emblems. I could not tell a Honda versus a Ford versus a Chevy. I mean, obviously, I can tell that's a Volkswagen Bug. I'm not an idiot. But the other ones I couldn't tell apart. I don't know anything about cars. And the other day I was wondering, I wonder if that has something to do with my facial blindness. I wonder if the reason why I'm not good with identifying cars, because people will be like, what type of car were they driving? I was like, I don't know. Had a couple wheels on it, possibly four, couple doors. I wonder if that's a side effect of my facial blindness. And when you say tanks, I think it's the same thing. Like I would say, I guess the M1 Abrams, just because that's the tank I grew up with. That's the tank my dad piloted around. But I also just know that name. I'm sure there's way cooler tank. I'd have to say, like, I think if I had to pick a tank, I would want one of those first off the line, first in battle World War One tanks when nobody knew what they were. Like I've always been amazed to think that one day out of the smoke and rubble of no man's land, all of a sudden a bunch of British troops in a trench heard a noise they'd never heard before. And coming out of the smoke and the morning fog is this contraption of steel rolling towards them. I find that absolutely fascinating. Like, talk about horror. Talk about just straight terror. The war's already bad enough, and you're one of the first people to go against the tank. You didn't even know it was a possibility. So it would be it would be those ones. It would be those spooky tanks in the beginning. Let's take a look here. I know I'm always so slow with this. David James, any thoughts on the recent UAP stuff? You know what's so funny is here. This is maybe I'm just old man. Maybe I'm just jaded. But it seems like they're not ever doing anything. Don't get me wrong, I love that they're having these hearings, and I love that they're being broadcast on television, and I love people are talking about this stuff. But it's like, it's always the same thing, and it's always the same clip. It's someone making a vague comment being like, I believe that we have contacted intelligence not of this earth. And I'm like, okay, and then what? Like, what's your evidence? Why do you believe that? It's always so vague. And this has been going on. I mean, it's been going on for decades, but the real public stuff has been about 2 years, 3 years at this point, maybe a little bit longer with all these congressional hearings. And it's just like, they're kind of dragging it on. And that makes me a little suspect. I understand why the government's dragging it on. Don't get me wrong. I understand why the government's covering up. The whistleblowers, they're just feeding us little tiny things that we can't confirm or deny. That makes me a little suspicious. That's making me a little suspicious. Like when the first one happened, I go, oh, here we go. We might actually get some closure or a little bit, something going on. But it's just the same. I understand the government backing it up, but it's always the same kind of weird words. Cretan Cave coming in from New York. Kelly can't get rights coming from, just saying happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. She was flying around the Carpenter Copter in a recent episode. Man with no qualities. Giving us a Thanksgiving from North Africa. Awesome. Thank you. That's totally dope. We recently, my geography is bad, but we were looking at covering that story about that serial killer in Africa. I think it was Zambia. And he is considered to be the most frequent serial killer ever. Like, he killed someone every 2 weeks for 8 months. There's never been anything like it. I think sometimes he was like doubling up on a week too. Absolutely terrifying story. I don't think that has anything to do with, I don't think that, let me pull the name back up here because it scrolled down. Man with no qualities. I'm not, he's like, well, that's not me. I'm not the serial killer. But no, that's totally dope. Caspian Montague, what do you do if ghosts are making and spreading dangerous ghost hunting equipment to kill ghost hunters and recruit them to the army of the dead? It's a funny question. Of course, now I'm starting thinking, like, what if that was true? We've covered a couple stories. It's pretty rare, but we've covered a couple stories where it does seem the ghost is trying to get company. I'm taking these dumb glasses off. We're now my now we're just going to do this for the rest of the live stream, covering my face. We've covered a few stories where it seems that the ghost is trying to get company. So hopefully, I mean, that would be pretty gnarly to do. Oracle relationships, saying that I'm the cutest. I'm not saying that. They're saying that. I don't want to seem like I got an ego here. Rudy Jess says about me saying the word "cut" during conversations. I do that in live when I'm talking about something where I have to like talk for extended amount of. If I'm just talking to someone and I go, "Hey, what's up?" I don't go, "Oh, cut." Hey, what's up? Like I don't do that. It's not that bad. But if I'm in a sentence or a paragraph while I'm speaking, I make a mistake, I'll go cut. It's just a stupid quirk. And idea guy swinging on by with an awesome donation says, I think you introduced me to Savage Land. Thanks. You're welcome. But now I don't remember. What is Savage Land? What is Savage Land? It's a horror movie. What? Oh, dude, this looks this looks hella dope. Did I recommend this movie to you? I've never seen. That looks pretty awesome. What? Is this a Mandela effect? It's a movie concerning a massacre on the U.S.-Mexico border town that leaves every citizen dead except for an amateur photographer who is accused of committing it. That sounds dope, dude. Thanks for the recommendation. Thanks for introducing it to me, an idea guy. Pizza Wolf swinging on by. Happy Thanksgiving. Saying what's up to the Fluffle. Let's see here. Joe Graves, have you heard of the Clickatat Ape Cat? He asked. Yes, the Clickatat Ape Cat. You know, that's a funny one. That is something that we have in the community. Clickatat is right across the river from us, right? And there, it sucks. My sticker for it is on the back of my. Maybe I can do this. Okay, so this is my laptop. So I got all my stickers. And this is a microphone thing. I don't want to move that, but I got my Weird Darkness sticker podcast. I got my Cobra Kai, some aliens, some ghosts right down here. Clickatat Ape Cat. So we covered it on the podcast a while ago. It's a big panther with the face of an ape or the eyes of an ape. And here's the thing. I think it's a really interesting story. I went over and talked to the guy of where it was at. Oh, wait, he wasn't there. I actually talked to one of his employees because it's Margie's outdoor store right next to Margie's pot shop. She was like one of the first medical marijuana dispensaries in Washington. Anyways, he's the owner of that store. Look at that. Messed up. The owner of that store is the one who's doing pushing the Clickatat Ape Cat. I've talked to people in town and, they kind of know who I am. Not because I'm famous or anything, but just because they're like, oh, you talk about ghosts all the time. And I go, hey, what do you think about the Clickatat Ape Cat? And almost every person I've talked to go, I don't believe it. I think he's making it up. Well, okay, I mean, that's cool. I don't think he's making it up. People think that he's making it up. People think it's a publicity stunt, but I would be cool. It's basically like a new cryptid in the area. Robert Paulson, thanks for swinging on by. Robert Paulson, didn't you make that's from you, right? I'm pretty sure. The hook? Or not, I'm pretty sure he's like, no, I never made that. And my brain's totally fried today. Let's take a look here. I'm going to skip down a bit. Whoops. Let's go here. Wow, getting all of these amazing donations. Kelly Can't Get Right. Thank you so much. My favorite human. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. That's a high standard. That's a high bar, so I appreciate that. Blitz Neo, I was joking. My dad did not actually drive an M1 Abrams tank. That was just a joke because I said I grew up with it. That was just the one I knew in the news. Rudy Jazz, thank you so much for your donation. You look like a GTA character with these sunglasses. These are, I think, LL Bean or something like that. Yeah, these were a gift. They actually, I don't go outside without my glasses on. My eyes are so sensitive to any sort of light. It completely drives me nuts. Tyler Zerbe says, do you know what the most successful military vehicle is? assume it's a jet, right? Probably a jet that drops a nuclear bomb, right? And wouldn't that win? Wouldn't that beat them all? Big Head Bonnie, fellow WW1 enjoyer at 925 in the morgue. Nice to see you. I had a oh, and Carol, I'm glad you got the video. Awesome. I'm glad that a long time ago I was going to write a movie script about the Red Baron. So I did a bunch of, this is like back when I was 20. I did a bunch of research about World War One. It's cool. It's cool stuff. Let's Neo's love from Latvia. Thank you so much for the donation. The podcast helps me a lot. I really appreciate that. I get comments like that, and it's awesome. Tyler Zerbe, they are having congressional hearings on whether or not there are aliens the same way they have congressional hearings declaring that tomato is a vegetable. It sometimes feels like that, which I understand the process. It's just the people who say that they know. Like once they come out, once they put that big bullseye on their back, why not just spill the beans? I don't know. I don't know if they're lining up a speaking tour down the line. Whenever you state something, now you might have to retract it. There's a chance you might be wrong. So that could be why they're doing breadcrumbs. I get it why the government's hiding stuff. I just don't get it why it's just being. They just keep saying we have, like the whistleblowers are giving kind of very vague phrases. And it's like, you either have it, you can either tell me something you witnessed, or just say, well, I haven't witnessed anything, but I've heard these stories before, and so on and so forth like that. Oracle, thank you so much for the donation. Happy Turkey Day. I'm thankful for the joy you bring to the Fluffle. I'm thankful for all of you guys being in the Fluffle. There'd be no Fluffle without you guys. And thank you for your donation, Oracle. El Pato, thank you for your donation. Really, really appreciate that. What do you think of the theories that nukes don't exist? You know we covered that on the podcast a long time. Oh, I didn't know I could heart these. Boop, boop. Now I feel bad for the ones I didn't heart. I'll go back and heart those. I covered that a long time ago on the podcast. It might have been in the first 100 episodes because I think it was on the conspiracy theory iceberg. I think that's all of them, right? Yeah. That is one of those conspiracy theories. Oh, that's cool. That is one of those conspiracy theories that might be. Okay, hold on. I mean, you guys can feel free to disagree with me. But it might be true in a way where, listen, I'm not an expert. I'm not an ordnance expert by any means. The idea, I always thought when I was a kid in the 80s that nuclear bombs were some sort of magical weapon, not literally, but you drop it and it just vaporizes everybody and it can cause radioactivity in the air and all this stuff. And as I got older, I realized that all bombs do that. Not so much the radioactive part, but the idea of having a nuke meant you'd only have to drop one bomb to level a city than 400. And I go, okay, I mean, that makes sense. Really, it's just a bomb that can destroy more with less. But that's when I started to seem less, because it was kind of portrayed in the 80s that it was just like this world-ending event. Like one of these things could declare a continent unlivable in, and all of a sudden half the population's kangaroos. They're fighting over water. I mean, covering up the fact that nukes weren't real would be it would be really hard to do. I will say this. I think that nuclear weapons exist. I think nuclear technology exists. I think that they are they're exaggerating what they're actually capable of to keep people in line. I think that's true. I think that they over-exaggerate how bad they really are. But I could be wrong. See, I'm not an explosive ordnance guy. I remember once, and you can find this clip on YouTube, of somebody, he wasn't even I don't even think he was an expert, was showing Joe Rogan footage we've all seen those footage of like the nuclear test in America where they show like the house And then all of a sudden the nuclear blast hits it and you see everything just kind of fly off the house. And there's multiple of this in this particular film set. You see the stuff get blown back from this explosion and you watch this. And again, maybe a scientist could perfectly answer this for you, but this is enough to make you go, They're watching this footage, and the guest asked Joe Rogan, because you watch this whole house just get disintegrated. You watch all this stuff get disintegrated over and over again. And the dude asked Joe Rogan, he goes, how come the camera's not moving? How come the camera's not shaking? It doesn't vibrate at all. I mean, this explosion it strips the paint off the house, and then the planks of wood, and then the house itself. I mean, like the camera doesn't even jiggle. So I think stuff like that could have been faked, so the Soviets and even our own population would not want to mess with a nuclear war. I think that there probably are nuclear weapons. I think that they're not magical. They're just bigger bombs that can have more of a long-term fallout issue, but I think some of the footage was fake. And this is the problem, is that may be true. And then you go down that rabbit hole. I think that footage is not real. That does not mean that nukes don't exist for me. Some people will say the footage isn't real, therefore nothing is real. But that's an interesting question. I've never readdressed that on the show, but I have thought about it. Robert Paulson, thank you for your donation. Are you following this wild orb invasion in the UK? It's good to see your face. That's a nice little segue. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well, Robert Paulson. Yeah, it's funny because I come across those cool UFO stories from time to time where it's like orbs here, or that one flying thing that looked like these tendrils hanging down. It might have just been a mylar balloon melting. I come across a lot of that stuff, but it's hard to talk about because it's mostly just a picture. It's mostly just like, here's a weird photo we got. So it's kind of hard to talk about on the podcast. There's that news report, and you see the orb fly by. Like, it just was, a week ago? It was like during New York, they're like, have a sunny New York afternoon. And then you see this little blue thing go. It's cool stuff, but yeah, I don't. It's kind of hard to talk about. Space Age asks to bring the war to the ghost by bringing a solar plexus clown glider on a ghost hunt. Well, I'm sure that's happened. They're attached to people. The solar plexus clown glider is one of the kind of weirdest ongoing stories on the podcast. When I covered it the first time, I never thought I would talk about it again. Not just because it was so scary or I didn't, but it was just kind of like, this is a weird psychic parasite, and they just keep popping up. And the fact that they're always in some way related to a reptile or a snake, super weird. That's one of the things I love about that show, and it's all because of you guys being here that allows me to do this, is that these weird connections we've made over 6 years. It's just like, what? Who would? And even the second time I covered it, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of weird. And now we've covered it like 3, 4, 5 times. Edward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just popping in to say happy Thanksgiving. The way you churn out content is insane. Thank you so much. It can drive me insane sometimes. Last night's episode, I recorded it, I don't know, 3, 4 in the afternoon, maybe 5. I was editing, busting it out. I had to go. There was a concert in town, this hip hop cover act that I like to go see called Vitamin D. But yeah, sometimes it's just like, oh, I just got done having a break. And actually, it's so funny. A lot of times when I do breaks on this show, by the last 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to do the show. No. Are you guys still there? Are we still on the live stream? Oh, man. But you know what? I did not. Oh. I was trying to record this. It should be fine. I was trying to do a separate recording. I want to make sure you guys are still here. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know what that happened, but anyways, I was supposed to be doing this recording thing. Let's see here. Let me find out. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it just there's a lot of sometimes by the time it's for me to take a break, it's like I can't do this anymore. This is so hard. This is the first time I've taken a break and I'm ready to go. Like I was just kind of like sitting there for 2 weeks, being like, I want to get back to the show, but I had to take it. Let's see here. I had to take my break. Art Jimenez, Art. Thank you so much for the generous donation. Really, really appreciate that. Happy Thanksgiving from Art, Maria, and Artorius. We are grateful for another year with you to stay healthy and stay away from dogs. LOL. And there's a little picture of a puppy that is ready to attack me. I had a tiny dog follow me for a bit the other day, but I had just bought a burrito, and I think he just wanted my burrito. So, I can't be scared of every dog. And put Maria and Artorias. That is a Fluffle family. I think all of them have piloted the Carpenter Copter at some point. Poor Richard's Farm, thank you so much for your awesome donation. Happy Thanksgiving from Wisconsin. Feel free to let your episodes go long. That's funny because that is kind of a battle I'm constantly fighting. Time is valuable. I'm not worried about my time. The difference between me putting together a 50 or an hour long episode and me putting together a 45-minute episode, it's actually harder to put together a 45-minute episode. But life's busy, man. To expect people to sit there and listen to it for 50 minutes, 55 minutes to 4. I want to get back down to 45. I think that's the sweet spot. 22, 30 minutes, that was too short, but that's just my thing. Time's too valuable. Time's too valuable. But Cretan Cave and Poor Richard's Farm say make them go. The 3 hour long episode from time to time. Let's take a look here. Yeah, Cretan Cave can't wait for Jason to lose the list of donators, only to find it 1.5 years later. That is, I know. I just happened to grab this little. You can tell this is high tech. It's the flimsiest little notepad I got at a dollar store a long time ago. We'll see that. Yeah, El Pato's asking about the. I'm gonna get up and grab a drink, and then I'll grab my. Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna grab a drink. Hey guys, how's it going, guys? It's like you're like that mask would have been creepy, even without the creepy mask. Creepy boys. So this is my Bert. This was my Halloween costume. I got this at Goodwill. This is. Dude, isn't that awesome? It almost ended my live stream?
Come to Freddy. Welcome to my
nightmare. So now we're basically just having chaos. People who are listening to this, who aren't watching it live, they're like, what? What's going on? What mask? The creepiest Burt mask ever. Sabine got me this when we were in Port Gamble. Dude, isn't that dope? It was like 50% off because we were down there like after Halloween. Pretty creepy. I didn't know the eyes would do that. As I'm hypnotizing you, you're now all possessed by the dead rabbit. So yeah, we got some cool stuff. Got a cool mask. Amalia says that this is her favorite parasocial relationship. Well, I'm glad to be part of your paranormal parasocial relationship. People always bring that up to me when they're talking about YouTube, and I'm always like, you know what? It's not a YouTube thing. I go, have you ever wanted to have lunch with your favorite author? Have you ever wanted to sit down and you could talk to that author for hours? And they're like, yeah. And I go, well, isn't that parasocial? And they're like, but it's different. I go, it's not. You don't know the person, but you've developed. I go, there's nothing wrong with parasocial relationships. I say that now because I'm not tied up in somebody's basement, but you know what I mean. I think people always have this type of stuff. Rudy Jazz says I'm constantly displaying symptoms of neurodivergence, but I'm not going to get a diagnosis. Yeah, I mean, listen. I'm sure. I agree with you 100%. I don't even know if it costs money to get diagnosed. Tyler Zerby answers the question. Most successful military vehicle is a Toyota Hilux, which I'm assuming is almost just like a regular pickup truck with a machine gun strapped to the back of it, right? Yeah. Makes sense, right? You can travel anywhere. You can load it up. Joe Graves said, yeah, I learned about the ape cat from Margie's. Yeah, Margie's an outdoor store. If you ever get up to the Pacific Northwest, it's kind of a cool place. Like, it's mostly paranormal stuff. They also sell lightsabers. They also have a Star Wars room. But no, it's pretty cool. And it's like, if you're just on a road trip, I wouldn't come up here strictly to see that. It's not that cool, but it is pretty dope. Let's see here. So I'm gonna, let's see here. Pizza Wolf 238, do you think it's possible for a nuclear weapon to be used in the present day? I suspect satellite imaging and fast jet. You know, it's funny, when I was a kid in the 80s and the 90s, really in the late 80s, early 90s, the huge threat was suitcase nukes. Even though, like, you would read articles and they go, we don't know if these things actually exist. We don't know if you could put, nowadays it might be a little bit closer, but a dirty bomb or a suitcase nuke. And I think that's they're not saying that the nuke would actually have to be in a suitcase. You could put it in a U-Haul, for example, drive it downtown New York and detonate it. I think, you know, I know a lot of, like, one of the things with nuclear weapons is that they take a lot of money. I didn't know this. They take a ton of money to maintain. There's yearly maintenance fees. You constantly have to be taking off and going into the warhead and changing these things around. It's not a build and forget type of project. And when I read an article about that, I started thinking, Russia may not have any working nukes. I mean, they were already having an issue with them getting sold, with nuclear missiles, warheads disappearing. That happens over here as well. We have nuclear material that goes missing from time to time. A lot of times it's just misplaced. No system is 100%. No system is 100%. That's just the way that the universe works. You can't build something and say, we'll never lose a piece of this radioactive material. You will. Whether you lose it because you lost it or you lose it because someone took it or sold it, different matter. If you had 50,000, they don't have that many. Let's say that Soviet Union has Let's say that Russia has 6,000, 10,000 nuclear warheads. I do not think they've been maintaining them since the Cold War. I just don't. The amount of money that it takes to do that, I do not think that they have working. As I say from mushroom cloud outside my window, I don't think they have any working nukes, or not as many as they thought, as we think that they did. Fabio Nurban says the ghost ship trope, they seem linked to the whole ship going down. Are there accounts of a ghost in the middle of the ocean or at the bottom of the sea? A terrifying thought. That would definitely be like an old-timey sailor question. Technically, possibly. Because the thing with ghosts is that sometimes they haunt the location of where they died, like someone hanging from a tree. And sometimes after they die, they haunt their home or a place that was of a memory or some sort of consequential event. If you saw a ghost, the thing is that the best way to see ghosts is in a completely neutral environment. So I don't think you would. I think that there's possibility, and now that I'm thinking about it, aren't there old stories of sailors seeing lights in the water and thinking those were the souls of drowned sailors? I think we know that now to be like maybe some sort of bioluminescence or some sort of mold or fungi in the water. But I think it's just you're moving through the water fairly quickly, unless you're in a rowboat. And the way that it's choppy, I don't think you could really make out like a phantasmal figure reaching up, waving. But yeah, I mean, technically you could have the funny thing is the ocean's so vast that we have a hard time finding living people who are in a raft, right? If something happens, their ship goes down and they're in a raft for 30, 40 days, they're never found again. We have a hard enough time finding people we're looking for. But there could be. That's terrifying. Like imagine that you did see a ghostly hand reaching up through the water. I'd also say we talked about 9/11 as well. Like it's possible that 60, 70 stories up in midair, there's ghosts because that's where they died. A very, very terrifying, very, very terrifying story. You know, it's good stuff. It's good stuff because it's spooky. But Rudy Jazz says they want to believe nukes aren't real because I'm terrified of nuclear war. That was kind of how we grew up, and Cretan Cave is agreeing with that. Yeah, it was this idea of complete obliteration. And with nukes, it was really the only weapon that could threaten the West back then. I mean, there's no way you were going to have a sustained ground invasion, despite the award-winning documentary Red Dawn, despite what they showed us was possible. It was the nukes that scared us the most. And not here's the thing, it's one thing to survive a bombing raid. People have been doing that for decades and centuries, if you include like mortars being launched into castles, catapults, all that stuff. That's one thing. The scary thing about nuclear war is you survive the battle and your life is actually worse than if you had just died in the blast. That's what the thing is with nuclear bombs. Because if it was just like a city blew up and you lived 70 miles south, you would obviously feel for those people. You would have charity set up to help the survivors, but that's not what a nuclear attack is. It's that a city blows up and now you are worried that you're downwind from this radioactive breeze and you may die 12 months later. And you had nothing to do. You weren't in that city. You were nowhere near that attack. That's why I think people are more afraid of nuclear weapons than they are, say, a bombing run on a city. Because it's just this idea that the world may end. Blitz Neo asks, do demons fight ghosts or do they just not care about them? That's an interesting question. The thing that popped in my head was I thought, well, does a hummingbird fight squirrels? Is as cool as that might be to watch. Probably not. They interact in the same ecosystem. They're probably around each other fairly often, but they probably ignore each other unless there's something in the moment that has their attention. You're like, no, actually, Jason, hummingbirds kill squirrels. They're the number one death dealers of squirrels. But demons and ghosts are a bit different, aren't they? Because one's a human intelligence, would be the ghost, and the other one is a entity it's a demon's goal is to destroy mankind, whether that's just one human or a civilization. That's an interesting question, man. I'm gonna have to write that one down because that actually might be. We've had some great questions, but that one's kind of puzzling me. Here's the thing: I don't think they fight ghosts, but I wouldn't go so far to say they don't care about them. Really interesting. Let's take a look here. David James says, not sure if you've seen, but another YouTube channel supposedly received leaked documents. Kind of sussy. The images of UAPs are super cool and very detailed. I have not heard of that. I believe that it happens. And it's interesting because for the longest time, it used to be if you were leaking documents, you just kind of disappeared. And I think part of that was because who would you leak the documents to? You'd leak them to the New York Times. You'd leak them to the Washington Post. You'd leak them to CIA-linked publications. But you don't think that. You're like, hey, I have this whistleblower truth. I'm going to send it to the LA Times. I'm going to send it to, DC Examiner. I don't even know if that's a real newspaper, but anyways, the point is you send it out and then they'd call their guy and, they'd be like, no, don't run that story. And where did you get those from? Where did you get those documents from? Because a lot of times reporters, here's the thing, all media is infiltrated by the CIA. That's not a revelation. It's not even an indictment of the media or the CIA. The CIA would not be doing their job if they didn't know what was going on in these newspapers. And you don't have to have them like sitting, like CIA agents, like, oh man, I thought I was going to shoot Osama bin Laden in the face. Now I'm just clickety clacking on the typewriter. You would just need like one editor. You would just need one guy at the politics desk to be this dude who either works for the CIA or is friendly with the CIA. And what happens is when you're a reporter, you get your story, you get your UAP files, and you need to verify it. Because you get crazy stuff all the time. Back when I was writing for the college newspaper, we'd get rants sent to us. I mean, I had a ball. I thought they were fascinating. I was like, send the rants, keep sending them. But if I got a collection of, let's say I'm a professional journalist, and I get a collection of UAP files, and it's 2002 or 1997 or whatever, I get all these files, and someone says, hey, they're a whistleblower. They're working for this contractor, subcontractor, Pentagon. Here's some photos. A responsible journalist will then have to fact check that. They're just not going to publish that on the front page of the New York Times. And that journalist may not realize what's going to happen, but they go, this is weird. Like, I don't really believe in UFOs, but look at all this crazy stuff. And you go to your editor and you're like, hey, I got this stuff. This guy's a whistleblower. He's not giving me his name right now. He said I can check some stuff out. And then your editor is going to go, oh, okay. And you do all these stuff and you have these steps. And sometimes a story gets to what's called the legal department, where if it seems that it could be bad-mouthing somebody or it seems like it could be saying something that's not true, legal will take a look at it. And at any point in this pipeline, right, you have the editor, you have the legal department, you could have other people, copy editor, who's actually going through and checking the language and all of that, checking the punctuation. Any one of those guys could be CIA, and they look at this and they go, oh, yeah, no. Let me take a look at these. You don't know the guy's name? No. Okay, well, let me take a look at these notes, and I'll get back to you. Let me do some fact checking. You call up your contact, and you say, hey, we just got a bunch of files. I don't know if they're real or not. It's all this UAPs. They don't even call them UAPs back then, but it's all this flying saucer stuff, and there's a couple documents here, and that CIA guy is going to shut that story down. And it could be as easy as the CIA saying, do not tell this story. Remember, we have your daughter locked up. She's been locked up for 30 years now. She's actually doing quite well. She met a very handsome CIA agent. They're married in the dungeon. Or it could just be, no, that story's not true. That story's not true. We actually know who that guy is. We've identified him. He's a weirdo. Oh, okay. It's not true. We won't run it. Now it's a lot easier to just leak the stuff to YouTube. If these documents are legit, are you taking it to the New York Times or the Washington Post or CNN or Fox News or any of these guys? Or are you going to leak it to a YouTuber who's really exposing this stuff? So it's definitely possible. I haven't heard about that particular case, but yeah. Tyler, and I thought this might be the case. Tyler Zerby says, I can give a plausible explanation as to why the camera doesn't shake in the nuke footage. Footage is being recorded through a telephoto lens. We don't see when the shockwave hits the camera. That's fair. Like, again, I'm not even going to argue that. I'm not going to go, but what about, because that is possible. That's possible. I'm not going to go into that. So thank you. Sometimes when you say stuff on out loud and talking to a bunch of educated people, you guys could go, actually, well, no. So no, I appreciate that explanation. El Pato says, the day the new solar plexus episode came out, I was telling someone about your first experience. That's pretty funny. I remember once I was looking something up and I found the solar plexus clown glider story is in like a wiki entry. It's like a wiki entry for like paranormal phenomenon. And it was like, Jason Carpenter, the host of Dead Rabbit podcast, I was like, what? First off, you got my podcast name wrong. But secondly, I was like, that's weird to see it in this wiki. 925 in the morgue. Thank you for your awesome donation. Thank you so much. This podcast has been getting me through every day since I heard is GTA 6 powered by Satan's prison of tortured souls episode over a year ago. Thank you. I'm glad. You know what's so funny is probably there's two things. So the hardest thing is typing up my notes. It's not the hardest thing. It takes the longest to type up my notes. A lot of times I say finding stories, but what I mean is typing up my notes. Recording is pretty easy. Editing is just time consuming. Titling episodes, that's the last thing I do, right? I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, what do I call this one? What is this supposed to be like? And sometimes my recent episode, what was it? Life, Love, and Leashes. I was like, oh, that's so bad. That's the dumbest title you've ever come up with. But I was sitting there for like 10, 15 minutes. I didn't want to tell you guys the dog died in the title because then it kind of gives it away, right? Even though you guys are fully aware, I gotta put my glasses back on, my eyesight. Even though you guys are fully aware, dogs always die on the podcast, which it's not a plan. I love little puppies. I love little dogs. Every so often, though, you get handed a beauty. Like you get just the title is GTA 6 powered by Satan's prison of tortured souls. I don't remember much about that episode, but that's pretty good. That's a pretty good title. Yeah, sometimes just stinkers. Sometimes I like the title to be a little mysterious. If you look at the first 50 or 60 episodes when the titles were funny, oh, that was bad. That sucked. Okay, so man, it's like right when I was like about to say, all right, we caught up. Let's see here. Oh no, where did I go? Okay, we're back. Let's see here. Modius, yeah, Modius gets a shout out coming up too. Member of the YouTube Fluffle for 11 months. Really, really appreciate that, guys. Really appreciate you guys. Let's see here. Yeah, Carol Williamson. I think the camera, this is talking about the nuke thing. I think the camera was located in a bunker that was specifically reinforced for people in cameras. Didn't have the ability to fake video like that. I agree with that first part. That could definitely be true. If you used models, you probably could fake a video. Like I'm just saying, particularly the house. You could probably do it with enough money with technology of that time. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I do agree if the camera was fortified somewhere. I think it's because just the picture is so close. There's that other thing, and again, I'm not going to keep going into Joe Rogan's video, but apparently there's like a car that's there and then it disappears before the explosion. And you know that really I could just go, I'm just asking questions. Oh, what about this? What about that? And that's not, you guys are giving good answers as to why the camera wouldn't shake, and I do appreciate that. Sorry for the stream thing. Yeah, all that issues. Rico and Acapulco, thank you so much for the donation. Happy Thanksgiving. Still here. Because yeah, that was before I had the doll walking on the computer as well. I was just kind of just tempting fate here. Let's see here. Carol Williamson, I'm glad you're back. And the breaks make me appreciate you more when you're back. Oh, okay. I'm going to take a break right now. Yeah, usually by the time the breaks come, I'll sit there. I'll just sit there. I'm finishing episodes at 11 o'clock. And I go, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I don't know if I can do this for another 4 or 5 years. I don't know if I can do this for another 4 months. But then I take a break and I come back super refreshed. So I really appreciate it. Joe Graves said they had some super weird stuff or wild stuff. Sorry, the glasses, I can't really read that well. Wild stuff happening out on Mount Hood. Need to share. Yeah, always shoot me an email if you want to share it with me or pop it in a YouTube comment as well. Carol Williamson and Joe Graves love the long episodes. So does Rudy Jazz. So does Caspian Montague. So no, I appreciate that. I just sometimes I go, 55 minutes. I don't know if I'd want to listen to myself for 50. Well, see, my walk can be variable. So sometimes I'll take a half-hour walk. Sometimes it'll be an hour and a half walk, really depending on what I'm doing. So sometimes when I'm listening to a podcast, I don't have time to finish it. When I get home, I'm like, do I finish listening to that? Nah, it's okay. And sometimes I wonder, should I flip the stories? I always do what I call the best story. I think they're both good. I don't put out filler. I feel that I don't put out filler, but The second story I figure is the strongest story out of the two. And I've always wondered, should I swap them? Because that way, if you only listen to half an episode, you'd listen to the strongest story. But then I go, well, then, I mean, I don't know. I've thought about that, because it's like the nightly news. You start off with the most important news, and then it kind of trails off, so you can go to bed at any point. Pizza Wolf. Sorry. First, Kelly Can't Get Right says a lot of times your shows are my only laugh in the day, so I feel free. I love them. No, I appreciate that. Again, I remember listening. It was a cold winter, and I was playing Shadows of Mordor, that Lord of the Rings game, and I was listening to my favorite podcast, Parapod, and I was laughing so hard, and I was playing this video game. And that was one of the few times in my life that I could look at and go, I was happy. Like, even in that moment, I go, this is what happiness feels like. I'm truly happy right now. So I'm glad that, I'm not saying that you guys have that with me. I'm not saying you're like, oh, I suffer unless Jason's voice is in my ear. But, like, people go, hey, no, I really enjoy listening to your podcast. It makes me feel good. So I appreciate that stuff, because I know what it's like to be wanting that, those moments as well. Pizza Wolf 238. Sorry if this has been asked before, but have you ever considered doing YouTube form content? The problem is that YouTube is always on the verge of shutting my channel down. While I was on the break, while I was on my break, I got 2 content strikes back to back. They were both on episodes that were 2 or 3 years old. Both of them were about adrenochrome. And both of them were listing as, we've removed your content because you are spreading harmful misinformation. And I disputed both of them. Like, one was a warning, and then one was a strike. Like, they happened like bam, bam, within a day. So I appealed them, and I go, it's not harmful I'm making fun of them. I'm making fun of this conspiracy theory about the adrenochrome and all of this stuff. Like, I'm not actually saying that this stuff works. Like, those episodes, I could probably pull up exactly what episodes they said, but I don't want to accidentally mess with my stream. And so I said, there's no misinformation there. The episodes were making fun of that conspiracy theory. Both episodes then got switched to your cyberbullying. And we're not going to put the episodes back up. So it wasn't they just wanted the episodes down. Like, when I said, oh, that's not real, I'm making fun of it, then they go, well, if you're making fun of it, you're cyberbullying those poor Illuminati members who need that adrenochrome to live. So that's the reason why I don't do a lot of video. That's the reason why I don't do a lot. I'm not putting all my eggs in the YouTube basket. I'm not even putting half of them in there. I have no interest of going to Rumble. Their site has never really worked for me. As a viewer, when I've gone to watch Rumble videos, the upload just to watch a video is so hard that I don't want to be on the other side of that. I can just imagine. I mean, if it takes this long to watch a video, I can only imagine how long it takes to upload a video. But yeah. And so, I get it, right? I don't do she got great. She unalived herself. I don't talk like that. I wouldn't put out content like that. If I'm going to do a story about sexual assault, about rape, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about murdering people. Could you imagine this podcast if I said, and then the ghost unalived herself? But on the other place, I don't know. It irritated me enough. I didn't even want to continue the joke. If those are the tools that YouTube set up, I'm not going to follow those. I'm just not going to follow those. You guys know me. I'm not going out of my way to be super gross. You're like, Jason, no, you did an episode about Chinese boys peeing on eggs. That's a true story. But yeah, so no, I very, very cautious around YouTube. If they want to terminate the channel, it would suck, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. And I'm definitely not leaning more towards that or video stuff. I look so stupid with these glasses on. I'm sorry, but my eyes are killing me. Rudy Jazz pointed out that I have the Blue's Clues notebook, which that might actually be true. Yes, Carol, my chair does recline. This is where I do all my editing. You guys are looking at the magic right now. And then I got this here. You see that? You're like barely. It's just like I got it at Goodwill. It's a back massager, but it's like a solid piece of metal. You're like, I think they built it in the 60s. I'm surprised it hasn't blown up yet. Let's see here. Okay, I'm skipping down. I was like, why are you guys saying what's going on? It was when I was tripping over stuff and I came back with a burnt burnt mask. Yeah, Short Circuit, says, it's long episodes are hard to listen to. And I agree with that. Sometimes it's just a little too much. Sometimes, and to me too, like I may be looking at something to watch while I'm hanging out at home. I'm on YouTube. And if I see a video that's 27 minutes long, it's some Minecraft manhunt thing, whatever. And then I see another Minecraft video, manhunt, and it's 50 minutes long. I'll go, well, I don't have 50 minutes to watch a bunch of young men run around and attack each other. Right? As fun as that sounds, if it was in real life, I'd be like, I got all day. Let's watch this. Guys are having a death match. But yeah, so I try to keep the episodes reasonable. Yeah, Modius, with the parasocial thing, I think it's cute to have a chat with your favorite creator, but it's different to want to be in a relationship with them. I never saw parasocial relationships as like you're actually dating them. I think it's the idea like, oh, I'm a big fan of Red Letter Media, and I like it when I come home and I go, oh, Red Letter Media released the new episode. It's a new thing of Best of the Worst. Oh, this is awesome. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch this. And you watch it and you don't act. It's like seeing them being like, dude, it would be totally cool to hang out with these guys. I bet you that would be cool. That'd be cool. Someday I'm on the show with them. That's technically what people would say, oh, that's unhealthy. That's a parasocial relationship. You don't actually know them. They don't know you. You should just consume content without anything in between you two. And I was like, what? Everybody does that. Everyone has, oh, I'd love to just sit down and pick Martin Scorsese's brain. I'm going to ask him about his favorite Marvel movies, and he won't be let go until he tells me his top 5. It's like you have an affinity towards somebody you've never met and somebody you never will meet. Parasocial relationship, I think the relationship is just like it could be the crazed stalker with the sign outside your door, but I think it's mostly like this idea of internet friends or a friend simulator. They say it's unhealthy because you don't have real friends. But hey, man, if that's all that you got, if you have a relationship if you're friends with someone that you listen to, if you're friends with someone on YouTube, it's like, why is that a bad thing? Right? Again, I'm not tied up in someone's basement right now. My feet are still attached to my legs. They haven't been chopped off. So my opinion could change, but that's how. I just never really understood it. It always seemed to come from an anti-YouTube thing that's been around forever. Let's see here. I'm skipping down a bit here. Caspian Montague says there's famous Watertown ghost photos, which are kind of just photos of ghosts. Ghost and water do have a weird reaction, like a weird relationship. And I think it's kind of talked about. We talk about it a lot on the show. But I remember I read about that years and years into looking into ghosts. Someone had stated that, and I go, dude, you're right. Like no one had ever succinctly said that. A lot of times ghost research is we look at a lot of surface level stuff. And that's one thing I love about paranormal research nowadays, as opposed to, back in the 80s, is that people are more open to different theories. What could be causing this? Art Jimenez. So this is an interesting question. So if an alien crashes or dies on Earth, do they leave ghosts on Earth, or do they haunt the spot where they died? First off, that would be saying whether or not aliens have souls. And we all know the answer to that is no. No, I'm just joking. I wrote a story a long time ago when I was a writer. I sent it off to a ton of publishers. No one ever published it. But it was about a bunch of humans, a human army sent out to the depths of space to fight this alien menace This war had been going on for a while, and our protagonist, his drop ship is exploded, right? He's in this ship with like 20 other guys, 200, however many. They're landing on this planet, it gets evaporated, and this human soldier, I don't remember his name, we'll call him Tony, he ends up going to the aliens' heaven. And it obviously was super alien to him. You can understand. They're like, here, you can be in the salt baths up forever. He's like, oh, it's gross. I don't want to do that. He meets the alien god, and the alien god's like, what? Like, it must be some sort of mistake. Like, your soul is now in our heaven. And we can't do that. And the dude's like, okay, well, I mean, just send me to my heaven then. And the alien god goes, we can't do that either because alien gods never make mistakes. So if we sent you away, we'd be admitting, or I'd be admitting that I made a mistake, and I never make a mistake, although I clearly did. So what instead I'm going to do is I'm going to tell all the other aliens in alien heaven that you're part of a like exchange program that your God sent you over here, whatever. Like, he's like, just get out of here, like, go to your paradise. But because he wasn't an actual alien, he goes, listen, you're not going to our hell. We're not that evil. But you also can't be in the best part of our heaven. You have to go to like the ghetto part, the ghetto part of the heaven of the people who truly believed in me, but didn't do enough in their life to attain true paradise. Or, they didn't die in battle or whatever it was. So this human, Tony, is sent to the outskirts of the alien heaven. And it was just a bunch of like people. It was just families. It was just basically like a low income version of the regular heaven. And he's just trying to make his way through life. It was called Stairway to Mugava, because that was the name of the alien heaven. Man, the thing is, when I still have that story. Maybe I'll post it somewhere or do a dramatic reading of it. I haven't read it in 20 years. I'd always come up with these ideas that I thought were like, oh, dude, this is like totally cool, man. Oh, Stairway to Mugava. Oh, it's like Stairway to Heaven. What do they call that? Too clever by half kind of thing. But anyway, that's one of the few short stories that I actually finished. Because a lot of times I'd come up with ideas. But anyways, that reminded me of that art. If an alien, so that would be the thing. If an alien, like, what if they're, it's a super fascinating question, because they would have their own religion. Some aliens do. And if they crashed on Earth, would their soul haunt here? I mean, I would think if there was something that kept it here. There's a lot of talk about Earth being a prison planet, that there's actually a network, a Faraday cage in a sense around Earth to keep souls from leaving, because the Archons want to drink all of our loosh. If there was something like that, then 100% the alien would be stuck here. 100%. And that would be terrifying to think, oh, I don't want to go on an Earth mission. What if my ship crashes? That doesn't happen often. That happens more than you'd hope. I don't want my soul to be trapped on Earth. Would you even be able to tell the difference between an alien ghost and a human ghost? Would it look like would it present itself as a gray alien? I don't know. It's a fascinating question. I would guess. Yeah. I mean, again, though, sometimes ghosts do show up at their home planet. Fascinating question. Carol Williamson brings up, and this is the thing, I thought that you guys would be able to figure this out. Carol Williamson brings up water babies, talking about the question, if would there ever be a ghost in the ocean of somebody who just drowned or fell overboard. Yeah, water babies, they're the souls of children who were drowned by the tribeswomen before a massacre. So, I think that's where you hear the crying from the water, or you see like a little baby, like head pop out of the water. Which, I mean, what's funny is that the other day we talked about the ghost girl, and then I had to revamp it and say, oh, that was a cursed episode. Sorry for all you guys. If you listen to that episode, and you don't have to, it is cursed. It is cursed after a while, but in the story, when I was doing the first episode, when I said the girl was 4 to 5 years old, the ghost girl was 4 to 5 years old, when I recorded it, and I think you can hear it when I think I left it in while I was editing it. There's almost like a tone of disbelief. Like I had a hard time processing that. I was like, that's a tiny ghost. I guess when I always thought of ghost kids, I always imagined them closer to like 10, like old enough to like do something. A 4 or 5 year old kid is pretty helpless. So to have a 4 or 5 year old ghost, I don't think I'd be that scared of it. It'd be just too tiny. I mean, this one was sucking the woman's soul out. I guess that's a little harmful, but I wouldn't be physically afraid of it. Not at all. And Nick J, the Bustins, Nick and hell, I always get it wrong. No matter which one I say, it's wrong. Nick and Helena Bustin, thank you for the donation. Really, really appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving, Jason. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys as well. Let me put it in my little Blues Clue notebook. Boop, boop. Rudy Jazz says, I think demons and ghosts are like those co-workers who are in the same building but never interact because it's different departments. That 100% could be the case. I mean, if demons are trying to corrupt the souls of man, you've kind of missed the bus if they're already a ghost. It may not even be something that they're super concerned about. The question is, with a lot more conservative religions, ghosts are demons. They go, there are no ghosts. Those aren't actually your loved ones. Those are people trying to get you confused. Kelly Can't Get Right says, Jason, do you consider demons angels because Satan is? I do. Like, I subscribe to the biblical story that 1/3 of the angels in heaven were cast down and Lucifer was among those, and they are fallen angels. It's interesting because I know there's so many different variations. Like when you're a kid, you hear like the Bible. If you're, in church, you hear like the Bible. And as you get older, you go, well, there's this translation that's kind of different. Or there's this religion where it's totally different. Like the Catholic Bible has 5 extra books in the middle of it. But yeah, and I've always thought that if anyone, I won't talk about this long. People, when I bring up the Bible, I actually watch the listener stats go, bow. I've always thought, wait a second. So this is one of those questions. Can God cook a burrito that's so hot, not even he could eat it? It's kind of like that. I go, so there's no answer to it, but I go, couldn't Satan also ask for forgiveness if everybody can? Like where's his redemption arc? And I've asked that question to ministers, and I've asked that question to theologians, and some of them say, well, his crime was vanity, and he's too vain to ever say, I'm sorry, God, I made a mistake. Can you forgive me? And then other people have said, well, I mean, it's not mentioned in the Bible that would ever happen. It kind of shows everything would wrap up. But I don't know, man. Maybe I'm an optimist. Maybe I'm such an optimist. I believe Satan will someday admit everything was wrong and go to heaven. That would be quite the optimist in me, though. Let's take a look here. I'm rolling back a bit. I just moved this just a second. Everything goes around. I did see Moist David MC's comment. All Jason needs is a cigar and he'll look like a mob boss with these dorky glasses on. Let's see here. Okay, so I know I am so bad at this. I'm going to scoot down here a little bit because you guys are having conversations as well. 925 in the morgue. As a Columbus, Ohio resident, let me write this down here. As a Columbus, Ohio native, I would love to hear you cover the Cleveland, Ohio's Balloon Fest disaster. That's why I was having a hard time. I was trying to write that sentence down. Of 1986, I am incredibly curious about that. It's not like the volleyball incident of 1997, right? It's not going to take me down a iceberg-sized wormhole. But no, I'll have to look that up. I know nothing about the Balloon Fest. Disaster of 1986. Sounds like a great name of a band, though. Let's see here. Carol Williamson says she appreciates all of my hard work. I appreciate you guys. I really, really do. I wanted to go back here, too. I saw this. Caspian Montague says, you're great at titles. Fated to Love, Destined to Die is a recent favorite. Yeah, every so often I'm like, oh, okay. Now, the thing is, I don't know what that episode's about. From the title, what was that episode about? I think I appreciate that she liked that title. That was one that I enjoyed. I just don't like the one about the stolen bong. The ties that bind. What was that story about? Well, anyways, I should look it up. But no, yeah, I appreciate it because the titles are not always the easiest things to come up with, especially when you have more than one story each episode. Let's see here. So I'm a Kitty Moo, 1337. Thanks for joining us. Do an episode on the freshwater octopus of Oklahoma. I think that's interesting. I did look into that at one time. I think it just kind of popped up. I was hoping it was going to eat. I was hoping it was going to eat people. But I'll take another look at that. And then the entire reason all cruise ships have morgues too is the reason that because there's an octopus, or is that a different theory? I'm going to put morgues question mark, and I'll look that up. Let's see. Short Circuit says their favorite title was Attack of the Hairy Balls. You can't go wrong with that. You can't go wrong with that. Let's see here. Kelly can't get right. This is interesting. Oh, L Pugboy, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Thanks for jumping on. And 925 of the Morgue says, what platform do you make the most money from when we listen? It's all the same, honestly. I mean, we get ad revenue from YouTube. If you listen to it on the like podcast apps, then it shows we get higher download numbers. So we get more from the national advertisers, but don't worry about that. Listen, what's the easiest for you to listen to? 100%. Because it all kind of comes out in the wash, right? We have the Patreon. We have like the national advertisers like the Sears, which is always fun. I had to change an episode. No one made me do it. But I did an episode recently. It was one of the episodes about like the sex offender Reddit stuff, right? I recently covered it again. And I made a joke about... I said the other day I saw on that subreddit that Lowe's will hire convicted sex offenders. And I go, that's the last thing I want when I go to buy a hammer, knowing that the guy there could be a convicted sex offender. And then I made a couple more jokes about it. Actually, like the next story, I made a callback joke to it. And I started thinking, Jason, first off, one, you don't know if that's true. You don't know if that's true. Someone said it on Reddit, said, hey, I'm a sex offender. I'm going to cut. See, I can't cut that. Somebody, not me, somebody said, hey, this person is a sex offender and they got a job at Lowe's. Can other sex offenders get a job at Lowe's? And some guy goes, yes. They got a job at Lowe's. So then I made a joke about it. When I was doing the segment, I go, there's a bunch of perverts working at Lowe's. Lowe's and Home Depot have both advertised on the podcast. Now, if it was true, if one of the people who advertised on this podcast, Lowe's or Home Depot, was actually doing something like that, if it was 100% true, going back to the journalism thing, right? Then I would make the joke. But as I was getting ready to edit it, I go, Jason, you don't know if it's true. You don't know if it's true. That's a big one. And two, they advertise on the show. So is it worth losing a national advertiser over a joke? And it's not just a joke either. It's pretty defamatory. And I was like, I wonder if Home Depot does it too. It wasn't just Lowe's. I was kind of throwing all of the hardware stores in. And I go, you don't know if it's true. That's the first thing. And when I went back to kind of look to see, I ended up editing it out, because when I'm editing, I don't have a lot of time, but I ended up editing it out. And then later on, I looked it up, and they 100% do not hire, Lowe's does not hire sex offenders. So I was like, wow, okay, well, good thing that, I mean, of course I tell jokes. No, I don't fact check all of my jokes. But this one, because I kept hitting it over and over again and was saying things like, oh no, they hire these guys. They totally hire these guys. I go, Jason, you know, they advertise on the show. So let's just double check it. If it's a joke, if it's real, keep it in. If it's not, take it out. And yeah, I ended up taking it out. And then after the fact, it turns out it wasn't real anyways. Kelly Can't Get Right asked, have I ever randomly covered a case and have the person actually be a follower of yours? Close to that. I still feel bad about this to this day. But, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail because the person who was involved is like, I don't want any, you know, but it wasn't a story. Somebody had posted something on Reddit and said, hey, everyone, look at this cool thing I made. And I looked at it and I go, oh, really? Like, where are the links? And at the same time, that person, big fan of the show back then, I don't think they listen to it anymore, emailed me the same thing and said, hey, I'm a huge fan of your show. Here's this thing. This is totally awesome. Maybe you can use this. And the person, we got our lines crossed, because I was just like, oh, another one, not to the email, to the Reddit post. And then the person came back to Reddit and go, oh man, you made me feel totally bad. I was like trying to help you out. I guess that means that, I guess it's true. You shouldn't meet your heroes. And I was like, what? And then I saw the email and I was like, dude, I totally, there's no other way to put it. I fucked up. I felt so bad about that. I didn't feel like I was super like mean in the initial Reddit comment, but it doesn't matter. Like, I did go, not another one of these. Where are the links? So, and I feel like I kind of patched it up, but I felt bad. I was like, dude, like, and honestly, after that, I've changed the way, because here's the thing, I've changed the way I've interacted with people online after that. Because who would have ever thought that this person that I'm running to on Reddit was a huge fan of the show and had made me something? So, I mean, it was a labor of love. This thing is amazing. We have used it on the show multiple times. I think I'm probably giving away too many clues now. But I understood why they had that reaction, and because I never would have thought that I would run into somebody in the wild like that. And I still feel bad to this day. It happened a couple of years ago. I don't feel bad every single day, but every so often, like right now, I feel like this big. I feel like the tiniest little guy. But anyways, no, it's great work too. And what sucks is I go, we kind of like patched it up, and I was super embarrassed and contrite. I felt so bad. And he was cool. He was cool about it, but I think he's probably like, dude, whatever. Dude, I'm done. But no, it's really cool. That's the closest I've come to it. I haven't covered someone, but Kelly, that could happen, right? That 100% could happen. Someone posts a story online and then I cover it. And yeah, Oculus says, thanks for using the proper words. Yeah, if I'm watching videos now and they start, like, I'll watch a lot of like true crime stuff, and if they say unalive, they're talking about people being raped, I just shut it off and I go to the don't recommend this channel anymore. That's the only way that they'll stop saying. I mean, don't talk about true crime or talk about it like an adult. Let's take a look here. I'm going to skip down a bit here. Boy, Act just said, don't say that, Jason. I'm assuming this because I was talking about all of the murdering people versus unalive. Boy, hush. Happy Thanksgiving When are you going to drop Dead Rabbit Radio plushies? I'll buy one in an instant. You know what's funny is that would be dope. I ordered myself because I always wanted one. I'm not a huge fan of the who the guys with the big heads, the pop sockets, the rocket pops. What are those guys called? Pet Boys. They're the little toys with the big heads. Oh, Funko Pops. I bought a Jason Carpenter Funko Pop with a little ghost. It came with a little ghost. I got my own action figure. I can't sell them, but I thought it was cool. Let's see here. Rudy Jazz is crocheting a small Dead Rabbit Radio plush. You know, it's funny. Yeah, we actually have some artwork coming up. There is a Dead Rabbit Radio plushie made by one of our members of the Fluffle. We'll have that in the artwork coming up pretty soon for the Friday art. Let's take a look here. Occult Lifts asks, speaking of your stories, have you ever shown them online? You know, a lot of those, like both of those, I've written more, but those are the two stories that I kind of shopped around, were almost pre-internet. I think I wrote Welcome to Mugava like in 97, maybe it's a little bit, or I did a revision like 2001, 2002. But like there was no Wattpad. There was none of these things to post stuff on. I've shown them to friends. Like I said, I've sent them out to a bunch of publishers. Sometimes I would not hear anything back. Sometimes I'd get a rejection letter. Sometimes I'd get critique. It's part of the game. You know, nowadays you can do everything self-publishing and kind of do all that stuff. Tyler Zerby says, I've actually been in your house. Is that parasocial? No, because Tyler Zerby knows me. We, back a long time ago, we were musicians. We were in the same circle down in Sacramento. So yeah. Info punks. I saw that you popped up on YouTube the other day because you messaged me tech from Info Punks. But like I was saying earlier, I'm not generally responding to stuff on when I'm on my break, but yeah. No, Tyler knows me. He knew me. It wasn't 20 years ago. It was like 11 years ago, but that's not parasocial. But same thing, like when you're in a band or you're watching a band, you're like, oh, dude, I bet you those guys could party so hard. Is that parasocial? It's only parasocial when it's something you don't like. That's what I've noticed. Master of Ellipses, happy they made it. Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving, Fluffle. I read that sentence almost completely backward. Let's see here. Kyle Wortman, happy Thanksgiving, Fluffle Brigade. Thank you for so much for swinging on by. We still got people sneaking on in. Let's take a look here. That's funny. So Cecil Quetzalcoatl says, a few months ago when I would listen to episodes before going to sleep, the ads would be in a different language that I couldn't understand or identify. I was worried that it was a curse or spell. Well, I can't confirm or deny that it was either one of those. I don't know why why it would be in a different language, or even when you can't understand, it's a series of like loud beeps. Let's see here. Yeah, it's so funny because this is how slow I react to everything when I'm talking. I just scrolled down and a bunch of people were just saying Funko Pop from that statement I made like 10 minutes ago. I just do this so slowly. I'm sure there's a quicker way to do this. Let's see here. Just scrolling a little bit. Happy Thanksgiving, Carol. She's stepping out. Have a good one. And have a good one to all of you guys. This is my very first time I've heard the Catholic Bible has 5 extra books. Interesting. Yeah, they're in the middle. Between the New Testament and the Old Testament, there's 5 books. The reason why I found that out was my dad was a Southern Baptist minister, and he preached at Baptist churches. Well, one church, they accidentally ordered the wrong Bible, and it was this huge Bible. It was like the size of a 4-year-old and maybe a 6-year-old this long and a 5-year-old, whatever. It's this giant Bible with gilded pages, and you'd have to open it up, and they ordered the wrong one. So it had the 5 extra books. One of them's about like a dude fighting a dragon. It's like, how come this isn't in our Bible? How come we don't have this awesome dragon stuff in our Bible? Let's see here. Balloon Fest disaster of 1986. Yeah, I guess people are saying it was terrifying. It's horrible. Space Age recommends the Space Age's favorite title. I don't know if they'd recognize. I don't know if they would say the whole episode was great, but it was Castrate Punk 2077. That was a one that was, it was clearly in the title what you were in for. There's no mistake, right? Sometimes when it's like the episode I did recently, the Cursed episode, where the first 10-15 minutes was about a penis extender. I'm like, what? What happened to Monica? It's the name of the episode. The first 20 minutes are about a penis extender. You're like, nothing good. Nothing good's going to happen to Monica. Castro T, thanks for swinging on by. Nice to see you're back. Yeah, really cool. It's almost like a little family reunion with everybody popping in here. Kyle Wortman said, ever since the fart fetish episode, I've seen a lot of memes of gassy wolves. Coincidence? No, it's not. No, it's not. You've now been infested with the solar plexus clown glider of farts. The fart fetish episode... Fart fetish episode was awesome. Over on the Discord, people kept going, I'm going to give this fart fetish podcast a try. And then, like, they'd be like, I can't do it. Like, I got 10 minutes into it. It's so depressing. It's so sad. I got to listen to that podcast just because I imagine it was just boring. It's boring. The part that I listened to, they're like, hey, everybody, it's Fart Fetish Podcast. I was like, where's the fart noises? They have whoopee cushion right when anyone sits down. And we're like, here comes in our guest, my dad. He sits down. It's like morning DJs. They're so bored and so depressing sounding. It makes you depressed. It makes you depressed. Let's take a look here. The Funko, yeah, and everyone's like, oh, Funko Pop, Funko Pop. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, Carol Williamson said that I covered her story, and that's true. That is true. I will cover in stories that people send to me. I think I was specifically talking about what Kelly was, have I ever accidentally covered a story? Have I ever accidentally covered somebody's story? Now, I have covered people's stories in the past, and they've contacted me. I didn't know who they were. I covered their story. I'm not going to tell the whole story. Here's the thing. Like, one of the rules are if someone's trolling you, you give them no attention. None. So I'm not going to go into detail at all about this. But it's happened more than once where I covered a story. The person found out I covered the story, and they went nuts. But the thing is they were nuts beforehand. That's why they ended up getting, like, it's not just that I covered the story, it's that I was laughing about their story. They found out about it and went nuts, and I just was like, dude. I mean, there's more that went on. There's more that went on. This happened years ago. I'm not even going to give any more hints because, again, I don't feed the trolls. It does happen, though. Well, I'll do something, and then all of a sudden I start getting these crazy emails and all sorts of stuff. Let's see here. Kyle Wortman says, which Dead Rabbit vehicle would you most want fan art of? I would have to say the Carpenter Copter. I think it's crazy to think about this. I didn't think about this until this comment. We get a lot of fan art. I think we maybe gotten one or two pieces of Carpenter Copter fan art. One was a clip art of a Carpenter Copter flying in a larger image. And then a long time ago, someone had made different emojis. I think it was for the original Discord. I think there were different emojis for the helicopter art. But yeah, I think that'd be dope. I think that'd be cool to have a picture of the Carpenter Copter. Cretan Cave says, I have a question. What is the story behind the wacky intros you used to do? Oh my God, Cretan, why did you even bring this up? I remember one episode you said you had a reason for them and quit doing them, but I never heard the follow-up story. So the way that worked, I mean, when it shows me, you can tell I'm totally enthused to talk about this. It's actually, it's a fun story, but just brought back memories. You have a show going on for 6 years, you're going to have different, like, moments in the show history. So this might have been like season, I don't know, 10 to 12, something like that, 10 or 11. It was when I was still recording in the closet. People would sign up for the Patreon, and I'd say, "Oh, and running on in, carrying 2 cans of slippery snakes. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Rudy Jazz. Woo, yeah!" And I'd go, "That's pretty funny. Don't slip on those snakes." Next episode, "Oh, yes, coming from the salty seas. He has 2 eye patches because he doesn't like to see the seas." I'm pained even having to tell this story, Cretan. Thank you. Welcome in our newest Patreon supporter, Cretan Cave Productions. There's probably about 30 or 40, maybe more. That actually more. It went on for a while where when I would introduce Patreons, there would be something goofy. Here they come in, they're juggling fire, but the place is already soaking wet. It's And it was funny when I first started doing it because they were just coming off the top of my head. And then I go, you know what? It's just, I mean, can't come up with stuff to say. Like, you can't come up with funny stuff to say. He's riding on a spitting camel, but the camel's dehydrated. It's Kyler Orman. So anyways, I said in my head, I go, okay, I got to stop doing this. It's just getting too stressful. But I'd been doing it for so long, I had to wait till there was a break in Patreons. Because I go, if somebody signed up for the Patreon 3 weeks ago, this was during our big, like, our Patreon just exploded over the course of a couple months, and it stayed pretty steady. Every so often I'll have 1 or 2 people leave, and every so often I'll have 1 or 2 people join. There was this initial explosion of Patreon, and it was like for 50 episodes in a row, I had new Patreons. And I go, I can't stop doing the silly stuff now, because what if someone signed up for the Patreon going, oh, I wonder what silly thing he's going to do for me? I don't know why I made you sound like a goblin, but I remember there was one day I was sitting in that closet and it was so hot. I'm just sweating. And I'm 5 minutes into a 40-minute long, 50-minute long episode, and I can't figure out what funny thing to say. And I'm just sitting there, just sweats dripping off of me. And I was like, he's bowling? Maybe coming in, bowling everywhere. It's Barfy Man 362. That's dumb. And I sat there, and it was like 10 minutes. I didn't record a single thing. The computer was recording. It's 10 minutes of dead air. And I said, I'm never, ever doing any more of these goofy intros. I told myself, the second I don't get a new Patreon, I'm never doing it again. And then, I did all those Patreons, and then there was a day where I had no new Patreon, and I just said, coming into the Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone give it up for I'm a Kitty Moo 1337. Because I was like, I can't keep it up. Now every so often I'll throw them in. I don't do them all the time, right? I think recently, like, someone was, Kelly can't get it right, kept knocking stuff over, because Kelly just can't get anything right. And we'll have, like, Phoenix came in and was burning the place up. Sometimes stuff like that. But there was a horrible. Thank you for the memory. Thank you for the trip down memory lane, Creighton. As much as I love doing the show, every so often there's some choke point, right? Every so often there's some choke point. Let me go here. Let's see. Somebody jumped in. TG4463, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Barfy Man 362, yeah, Barfy Man, you just showed him that example. Thanks for showing up. Nicole Magenta, thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving. Glad you're able to swing on by here. See you later, Kyler. Have a great one. Yeah, dude, those wacky intros driving me nuts. JR, Book of Enoch is a good read. Yeah, that is kind of like a cool extra book in the Bible, isn't it? A lot of people say it's not canon, which is so funny because that's where that word comes from. Now we use it for Marvel movies and Star Wars, but pretty funny stuff. Pretty funny stuff. Now it's used for everything, but yeah, it's not. Book of Enoch is not canonical, but it's still pretty dope. Let's see here. Dave swinging on by. Happy Thanksgiving. So glad I made it to the end of the stream. Yeah, we're going to be wrapping up here in about 10 minutes. Robert Paulson apparently already ate so much. Let's see. I'm a Kitty Moo says, you covered my story when it came to the Oklahoma Foku bus? I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I've recommended a movie I've never seen before, and I've covered a story. Foku bus. No, I'm a little confused here. While I'm trying to figure that out, Kat, thank you for your donation, Kat. Oh no, or watch out, there's a little girl behind you. That's funny. You don't want to tempt anything, but like I could beat up. I mean, you have that doll. I could beat that doll up, but I wouldn't want to. She's been totally cool. Let's see here. Yeah, Barfy Man says there was that really cool digital painting someone did of the copter. I think it's around somewhere. Of the Carbonocopter. I remembered seeing art, but I just don't think I have it. Maybe it was on a Discord. Maybe it was posted somewhere. Let's see. I don't know if I don't remember a lot of my own episodes. Short Circuit, they were talking about an episode about a subreddit where everyone tried to modify their dicks. And one tried to make it look like an awesome blossom from Chili's. Listen, if that existed, that is something that I would cover for sure. I don't remember that story in particular. Let's see here. Oh, and then I see I'm a Kitty Moo says, oh, you covered my story when it came to the Oklahoma Foco bus, and then says, yeah, that was me, my bad. And Dave said, I thought that was me. If you're talking about the story about the person reaching out to me, it wasn't either of you. If I covered a story and they reached out and they go, yo, what's going on? Why'd you cover this story? You got me in all sorts of trouble. It wasn't you guys. I don't know if that's what you guys are recommending. This became a huge thing. This person reached out to me and said that I had caused all of this chaos. The world was falling down around them because I covered their story, and there was a secret agency out to get them now because I had exposed this story. And I'm like, what in the world are you? No. And here's the thing. I did not talk about it on the podcast. He gave me more than enough material. Like I 100% could have done a follow-up on this guy, but I said no because it's just feeding the troll. If I had just found all these postings online, I would have kept talking about it, but he's like emailing me. He's like, you don't understand. They're after me now. And you're like, Jason, what if they were? What if you're like, oh, this whistleblower, I'm going to call up the CIA. It's this guy right over here. No, it was nothing like that. It was just ramblings of a crazy man. I covered that. And then the crazy man got a hold of me and was like, you don't understand. No, like I'm being pulled into these high-level meetings. I'm getting yelled at because of your story. They're after me. And I was like, and it went on for a while. To the point where he eventually set up a online booby trap for me. I'm like, what are you doing? I totally forgot about you. It's a year later, and he set up a story. He made up a story and tried to get me to cover it. And I obviously knew it was him. There's only one man in the world who writes like that. It's not Max Kramer. It wasn't Hans Warmhat. It wasn't, if anyone thinks that it was them who emailed me after a story, trust me, it was not you. 100%. Trust me. There would be no mistake. You're like, oh, I never said that I was being followed. I never set a booby trap, an online booby trap. He's like, he'll never be able to avoid this story. It has testicles disappearing. It has a man at Arby's throwing up in the shake machine, and it has this other stuff. No, it was no. I can almost guarantee, unless that person's here, which I don't know why they would be here, but they'd be welcome, you know. But yeah, Barfy Man says I still do intros like the funny one, but nowhere near like they used to be intricate. At a certain point, I had such a hard time coming up with intros. I started doing them alphabetically. So I said like, coming on in on an army of alligators. It's V, woohoo, yeah. And then the next one would be like a barrage of beavers or what. I was so done by then. I was just really just trying to find out something goofy. Let's see. Tyler Zerby says it has been 20 years. The last time me and him did music together was at the chicken farm on June 23rd, 2006. That might be the case. It doesn't feel like 20 years. But yeah, because I moved out of that area way later than that. But I guess I had stopped. I was performing pretty much up until the end. But I know the chicken farm was this literal chicken farm that also doubled as a music venue. Right? So yeah, listen, man, it was fun. Live music was fun, but every so often you found yourself down at a place like the chicken farm. Yeah, David James says doing a daily podcast is already taxing. Probably your best to keep it as smooth as possible. Yeah, I was just like, it was too hard to come up with goofy stuff. Definitely. Let's see here. Oh, Fogobus is either a succubus or an incubus. Same demon. Was that the one at the mobile home park? I'm curious. Let's see here. Okay. Then now people are debating the penectomy episode. We were like, what episode did that man? I found a story today when I was reading the news, and it was about somebody trying to make testicle salad. There's this group of cannibals in Germany. And as you're throwing up, you're like, Jason, please give us a list. Jason, there's a difference between not saying unalive, but using the word murder. It's a completely different to start off a very normal sounding sentence. You're like, hey, the other day I was reading something in the news. And then the next thing you say is testicle salad. They go, you don't just because you say those words, murder, doesn't mean you. That's just how I talk in real life too. I'll just be talking to someone. I was like, dude, did you hear about that horrible, horrifying crime that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life? Did you hear about that? And I'll just say it. The testicle salad. I don't know if we've covered it before. I actually was trying to look into it. I was like, oh, maybe we'll cover it when we get back. Maybe we'll cover it next week. Let's see here. Yeah, Savage Lands is on YouTube. A couple of people have mentioned that as well. I'll have to check that out. It's so interesting. I don't remember watching that movie. It's possible. For sure. I watched a ton of movies. Riley asked the question, have there ever been stories you didn't cover because you were worried they would have a negative impact on the audience? A mega cursed episode. That's an interesting question. I've not covered stuff not because it's mega cursed. I've not covered stuff because it might put people in jeopardy. I've not covered stuff like that for sure. And there's probably the best example of that was the episode I did, the snuff film from outer space, which, I mean, that's the title of the episode. I think it was episode 1000. I think it was around there. And I didn't cover it for a long time. I thought the story was super interesting, but I just had a really hard time of telling the story where there is a guy presenting a conspiracy theory that's connected to a real woman's suicide. I was like, and he was saying that the family, she didn't commit suicide, she killed her, she was murdered, and that family was a bunch of arms dealers. And I go, how do I tell this story not only respectfully, but what if he's right? Like, I go, I don't think he's right. I think he's misinformed because of a lot of the other things he was saying. But I go, if he is right, then it would be dangerous to cover it. Because if this is some small cabal that's covering up this crime, it would be dangerous. So I come across stories like that too. I eventually covered it, but I mean, there was probably about 2 years in between me finding the story and me finally covering it. I can't think of a story that I thought was paranormally cursed, so much so that I wouldn't want to share it. That's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because if I read something horrifying in the news, if I read something really sad in the news, I struggled a long time with that story about the boy who threw the other boy over the railing at the museum just because he wanted to know what it was like to kill somebody. He walked up to a little kid and threw him, and the kid fell like 3 stories and was permanently damaged by it. And the older kid's just kind of staring off the walkway, looking at him, and walked away. He got arrested. It took me a long time to tell that story because that story really just kind of creeped me out. True crime story. But I can go, well, I'm not going to tell this true crime story. It's just not going to make anyone feel good. There's no lesson to be learned from it. Da, 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 da. If I came across a paranormal story, like let's say I came across a website that I felt was haunted, or I came across a movie or something that was cursed, I may not go into detail in it, but I think I would tell you guys about it just to warn you. I might say, hey guys, I think this movie's haunted. Like, I'm not going to go into a lot of, you know what I mean? Because the chances of you reading that true crime story, if you don't normally expose yourself to true crime, it's pretty low. But if you engage in the paranormal, if you're just reading stuff online and I find a haunted website and I don't tell you about it, and then you randomly find it and you get haunted, that's kind of on me. There's more of like a warning system, I guess it could go. Let's see here. Cretan Cave apologizes for bringing up the wacky intros thing. Yeah, no, that was it. I did them. I thought it was funny, but I really used to like the endings to the show. Like, there was a good like almost year and a half where I felt it had the best endings. The wrap up would always have this creepy, evocative ending. How I was saying, and then her soul never yelled again. Or did it? No, I mean, it's bad. I can't do it just right off the top of my head. But if you listen to some episodes, there's about a good string of maybe 75, 80 episodes that I just thought, I was like, damn, that's a good ending. Like, that almost sounds like a short story. That was dope. And what happened was I stopped doing that because a couple times I found myself repeating myself. And I go, well, I already did that one. And I just had gassed out. Like, now I can kind of fit them in where they're needed. Nowadays, I try to do that, but you can't always do that with every story. Yeah. But I did have fun doing all that stuff. Let's see here. Rudy Jazz says, I love how every time Jason opens his mouth, you have no idea what the hell could possibly be coming out of it. Yeah, Drunk Bob is talking about Bill dripping brain fluid on the testicle salad. I remember that one. The guy, didn't he have he had a runny nose, and it turns out his brain fluid was dripping out of his head. Let's see here. Yeah, Cretan Cave says that. So I did that story, the true crime story about this. I was thinking about that the other day. These criminals back in, I think, the 70s, early 80s, they took an entire restaurant hostage and made the hostages do horrible things to each other. Mostly it was he was making them have sex with each other. It was multiple armed men there, and they were making people have sex with each other, and sometimes they were related. But it's an interesting criminal case because not a lot of the information got out. Like, people were super embarrassed by it. The criminals were caught, and if I remember correctly, they had enough to charge them with all sorts of things. They didn't make, people get up and explain exactly what they did to them. So there's not a lot, and it was really kind of kept under wraps. It's crazy that it was this huge true crime story nobody ever talks about today. And Cretan goes, I get you don't want to cover the true crime on the pod. I actually love covering true crime on the pod. I'm going to start doing my true crime YouTube stuff again, the shorts. I love true crime. The reason why I don't cover it so much on the podcast isn't because of me. It's because something I've learned over doing this show. People who love true crime tend to love paranormal stories. People who love paranormal stories, a lot of them do not like true crime. So the Venn diagram only works one way. If you meet someone who's really into true crime, you start talking about ghosts, start talking about creepy stuff. They're like, oh yeah, no, I'm totally into that, like Dogman and all that stuff. But you talk to someone who's UFO hunter, high strangeness, they love the world of the weird, and you start talking about people killing their children with harpoon guns, and they're out. They're completely horrified. They don't want to know. And that's, I know, a high level, terrifying true crime story. People who like the paranormal, most of them are not into true crime. While most people who are into true crime are into the paranormal. So that's the reason why I don't cover it as much. Sometimes I'll do one a week at most. Usually it's almost one every 2 or 3 weeks. I'd rather do for the podcast audience a weird story, like a weird science story, than a true crime story. But yeah, people just don't like it. It's too scary. It's too real. And I'm not knocking people who don't like it. I understand why people don't like it. That was just something that I discovered through doing the podcast. Oh, the Venn diagram just doesn't work that way. So let's take a look here. I'm a Kitty Moose says, if I'm going to do true crime, at least make it South Korean true crime. I'm thinking about covering that mall. What was it? That mall, that department store that caught on fire. I was going to do that. That's another thing we used to do more of on the show, is disaster stories. But again, you start to run out of very novel disaster stories. But, I like to throw those in every once in a while. If you look at early episodes of Dead Rabbit Radio, it was far more chaotic. Like the episode about the 5 people who fell the farthest without a parachute. I love that. I love that whole segment. I thought it was cool. Those are hard to find, and they're impossible to force. I can't go, well, this week, let's do 5 people who suffered getting hit with a jackhammer in the brain, and it just doesn't come off the same. You just kind of have to find them, and it kind of fits. Those early episodes were way more chaotic. The last season, one of the struggles that I've had, and I've had at least one person pointed out to me, is that last season was a lot of single observer stories, stuff that you couldn't research. It was just, I had this experience, this is what's going on. Maybe there is even multiple people in the group, but it's like, this is a single event going on. And yeah, the show has done a lot of those, probably the past season and a half. The thing is that I find those super interesting, and I can find those easier. Sure, it takes me 10 hours of reading to just find a few to cover, but I really like those ones. What we lose, because we cover a bunch of those, is what we lose is the weird science ones, which I've been trying to do more of, the weird conspiracy theory ones, which we've been doing more of last season as well. And the haunted locations. I need to get back into the Shadowlands and think about it, docs.com, especially the Shadowlands, because there's always extra research you can do. You get the ghost stories that I like, but you also get, hey, we can look at these articles. We know when it took place, where it took place, and all of these things. So that's something we're working on with the show. A lot of times I get enraptured by the single ghost story, right? The person saying, this is what's going on in my house, help. I love those stories, but the show has become a lot more of those, and I'm trying to balance it back out. Kelly says, yeah, she misses their true crime shorts. Well, we're going to have those guys back. It's just about having the time to do it. And everyone is going to bed, and I'm going to have to get ready to go as well. I'm just reading the last few here. Riley, do you ever think about doing episodes with guests? No. I mean, the thoughts, you're like, okay, that was an answer. The thoughts popped in my head. The biggest issue for me is I do not have the tech for it. I do not like talking on Zoom. I will do Zoom stuff, but it's not my favorite. It's much harder for me to get into the flow naturally. The times that I have done it successfully was with Tressa on her podcast, The Asylum. the asylum case files. That was a lot of fun, but I wasn't in charge of that. She was in charge of that. So I just recorded the stuff and she gave it to someone to edit. For me, I don't have the gear to do it face to face, which is how I would prefer it. And yeah, I think I've thought about, listen, if the show was my only gig, if this was my only job, then we may do a weekly or monthly interview, right? We could start doing on the location type stuff. But right now, I mean, just putting out 5 episodes a week is, it's not difficult, but it's just time consuming. When I start throwing interviews and things into it, I think it would just be more. I do agree, you can get more audience crossover, but it's just not. It would be weird. It would be weird because you're so used to just hearing me. It's a tech hurdle, and the desire is not there right now, nor the time. But I do appreciate that question. Let's see here. We'll do one more. Here we go. Riley says, have you considered doing your talks as YouTube content and keeping the Dead Rabbit Radio channel separate, doing a handcrafted? So that's a good question. Riley's saying, like, what if you did a YouTube episode on Darkness Egyptian and you actually were able to put together a video of that? We see other YouTubers do this where it can be 20 minutes, it could be a half hour, 45 minutes. I don't, this would be the main issue. I think that is a good idea, but I don't have the time. That's really what a lot of this stuff comes down to, is that I just wouldn't have the time to do that. That's why when you start to see the YouTube shorts, the true crime, the minute-long things disappear from the channel, it's because I don't have time. Even doing that minute is going to take a half hour of getting the story, typing it up, doing all of this stuff. And I just have to say, I have to just start cutting stuff. The thing has always been the show comes first. I love doing the true crime shorts. Sometimes I'm able to bulk them up in a week. But if I don't have the time, then they're cut. I don't do that. I need to get the show out. So yeah, having a video. And the thing is too, is that I could make a video. I could make a 30-minute long, really cool thing about Darkness Egyptian. 30 people watch it. And I go, I sunk, 5 hours into that thing and put it up, and I got 30 viewers. Because, like, let's say it's on a separate channel. If it's not on this channel, you could get 30 viewers. It took a long time. What started, this is why you see a discrepancy between, I got to go soon, but you look at the amount of subscribers this YouTube channel has, it's like 55,000, 58,000, somewhere around there. You look at how many people watch each video, it's like 300. You go, well, so what is that? Why is there such a discrepancy between 300 and 5,000? That 58,000, those are YouTube short subscribers. That's 100%. I originally had maybe 18, 20,000 subs that took me 4.5 years to get. Just a little bit of subs each time. People subbing on it, watching a couple videos, moving on. When I started doing those YouTube shorts, it jumped up 30, 40,000 subs. Because if you look at the YouTube shorts, especially when you look at the older ones, 1 million views, 700,000 views. So people aren't watching the long form content. I mean, you guys are, but you guys are fans of the show. Maybe you found it through the Conspiracy Theory Iceberg. Maybe you found it from an ad. Maybe your friend told you about it. Maybe you just stumbled across it. You're watching the long form stuff. But most people on YouTube, they're getting that minute long. That's the 70% of those subscribers are YouTube shorts. Some people watch the YouTube shorts and started listening to the podcast. Some people listen to the podcast and do the YouTube shorts. But we are going to bring those back. We 100% are going to bring those back. So that'll be starting this week. That's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm hoping for. But guys, thank you so much for coming out. We're running a little bit late this time, but I really, really appreciate it. I'm so glad that you guys came out. I'm so glad we were able to spend Thanksgiving together. Always fun. We're going to do this again at Christmas time. We probably eventually should do a live stream when it's not a massive holiday, but I appreciate all you guys being here. You guys have an amazing Thanksgiving. And here, I'll take my glasses off so I can look at you while I'm doing this. You guys have an amazing Thanksgiving. I hope all is well wherever you're at in the world. Love all you guys. Tyler Kimball, Alex M. Austin. This is where everyone, I'm reading the names off as quick as possible before I go. Aki Lifts, thanks for coming back. Yeah, I'm glad you remembered it as well. TG4463, you are welcome. And we are going to, it's moving over here. It's going to InStream. Yeah, V, Short Circuit. Here come the final. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Have a good one. Master of Ellipses. Yeah, I'm glad you're able to make it too. And we are calling it now. Caspian Montague, JR's last guy. We're calling it now. Beep. Dave got in at the last minute. Joe Graves, Drunk Bob, I'm a kitty, Moo is claiming last. I'm hitting the button right now.